This is all about Bitcoin, a show dedicated to all things, questions, and markets related to Bitcoin, little b for the currency, and Bitcoin, big B for the network. A collective journey to understand, apply, and use this innovation. All Bitcoin, all the time. I'm your host, Christine Lee. Let's take a quick look at Bitcoin right now. The Coindesk Bitcoin price XBX index currently trading at $42,194. Bitcoin is down about 5.8% over the past 24 hours. The most reliable reference prices for institutions since 2014 are now published under the Coindesk brand, trusted globally as the leader in crypto news, events, and data.
The chart of the day is brought to you by Crypto.com, the world's fastest growing crypto app.
Bitcoin at one point shaving off $4,000, meeting resistance at $41,000 earlier today following China's renewed anti-crypto stance. The People's Bank of China saying Bitcoin, Ether, and stablecoin Tether do not qualify as legal tender and cannot be used in the currency market. In fact, the Chinese central bank declared all virtual currency-related activities illegal, including derivative transactions and overseas virtual currency exchanges serving Chinese residents. China is renewing its crackdown on crypto trading and mining amid pilot testing of their digital yuan. However, according to China journalist Colin Wu, the latest central bank statement is quite detailed and mentions Tether as illegal for the first time. Tether, the largest stablecoin per market value, is widely used to trade in and out of more volatile cryptocurrencies. Earlier this week, the New York Times reported that U.S. regulators might declare stablecoins a systemic risk. Further, SEC Chair Gary Gensler compared stablecoins to poker chips. So analysts are telling Coindesk that regulatory uncertainty presents a major downside risk for Bitcoin in the short term. Joining me to discuss BTC price and other Bitcoin news is our Week in Review panel, Coindesk Managing Editor of Technology, Christie Harkin in Toronto, and Managing Editor of Markets, Brad Keoun in Austin. Hello there, Brad and Christie. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Christine.
Good to see you. All right, so this China ban has really rocked our Friday. Brad, tell me a bit about the market impact that China has had today and throughout the week.
Well, you know, the story today has knocked $2,000 or $3,000 off the price, not taking us down from about 45,000 to about 42,000 ish. But it's not that crazy of a drop. You know, I mean, obviously Bitcoin's pretty volatile and it's down 5-ish% today. I mean, in crypto, that's kind of no big deal. And that is what a lot of traders are saying is that, yeah, I mean, this is the stiffest, most severe crackdown that China has had to date. But it's also, you know, like their 5th or 7th just this year, you know, or the past 12 months. And, you know, Bitcoin keeps bouncing back from this. And so that's kind of what people are saying is like not really a lot that is super different here from what we've seen in the past that Bitcoin's bounced back from. So it's holding up pretty strong, all things considered. Right. You know, earlier in the week, we had that big, yeah, go ahead.
Well, we were saying earlier on Coindesk TV that compared to other China crackdowns and, you know, reiterated bans, the markets are handling it quite well in comparison to previous years. And taking a look at the statements they've been saying, nevertheless, it does appear that there is a sense of a more strict policy going forward. Christie, is anything new with what they are saying in China this time around?
Yeah, a lot is different. And I mean, at the risk of, you know, spreading Bitcoin China FUD, it's really different. For several years now, China's been issuing these sort of directives that incrementally have limited the ways that China's cracked down on Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Like we had the mining ban, we've had, you know, the exchanges couldn't trade anymore. I mean, it was behind the whole ICO crash. But the thing is, every single time they say things like, oh, but Bitcoin's not illegal. Cryptocurrencies aren't illegal. There are just certain things that you can't do with them. And this distinction seems to have kind of evaporated in this latest directive. It's pretty comprehensive. It strikes me as a surgical strike on Bitcoin in China. I mean, it's not just Bitcoin, it's all digital currencies. And if you look at their definition of digital currencies, they're not leaving anything out. They really go for it. Then they go after all virtual currency related businesses that, like, if you are involved in buying, selling, trading, producing, that's mining, which we've known about, fundraising, offering derivatives, like anything. If you're like offering customer service to a foreign offshore business that deals in crypto, you can't do that anymore. So this is I see it kind of as a big deal in that regard. And I think it's kind of amusing that the markets aren't responding to it. I think it's great because it shows the markets maybe have matured to the point where they don't, just look to China. But my goodness, this one really strikes me as a big deal. And every other time China's cracked down, I've always said, okay, everybody, let's put the foot on the brake. It's not as big a deal as it sounds. But I mean, short of, saying that anybody holding Bitcoin is a criminal, they really have gone after like any kind of business, any on and off ramp to crypto. So,
right.
Yeah.
It's sort of like a war of attrition. Each time, each couple of months, they keep chipping away more and more at the crypto industry, taking away people's access and whatnot.
Muyao has put out a really great article called China's Latest Crypto Ban is its most severe. And she gets into it too. And at the end of the article, there is sort of a silver lining. I'm not entirely sure how silver lining-ish it is. Justin Sun from Tron is like, oh, but they're not saying you can't, exchange it with your friends and neighbors. I'm like, well, okay, but you can't put it through an exchange. You can't off-ramp it anywhere. It's pretty close. And I don't know. It seems like this is more than we've seen in the past.
Right. And this ban, Brad, isn't the first time China has spooked the market. Earlier this week on Tuesday with the Evergrande scare, the Chinese real estate giant Evergrande defaulting on payments this week was expected. And that caused global equities to tank, as well as the crypto markets could not escape that macroeconomic slashing. And so where are we at now in terms of the new support, the new resistance? Where does Bitcoin head from here on out?
Well, people are saying that right here we're at 42,000. The 100-day moving price average is around 40,000. We might go down to that level. If we get below that level, we'd go down to 36,000. But, right now it seems like we're sort of stabilizing a little bit, in this 42,000 area. So we could potentially trade up to 46,000, but it doesn't seem like we're in any kind of a tailspin here.
JP Morgan also out with a report analyzing the CME trading, and it appears that institutional traders are getting into the dip.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, there are there's to Christie's point, there is a lot going on in the Bitcoin market. There's a lot to think about. But, that story is, there's other blockchains besides Bitcoin. There's other tokens that people are getting interested in. And, so like, for example, there were a bunch of crypto conferences this week. I was at one in Dallas, or here in Austin, sponsored by Vertalo. And they had, representatives from the Tesos blockchain and Hedera Hashgraph and, Ravencoin. Bitcoin's in the background. Nobody's, saying Bitcoin's going away, but a lot of these other projects are getting a lot of excitement. And I think that's this JP Morgan story is, JP Morgan saying that people seem more interested in Ethereum than Bitcoin. Who knows? There's a lot of surveys out there.
Right. I was also at the conferences. It's been a crazy week, 2 weeks of conferences, really, with last week with SALT and this week with Messari's MAINNET both in New York. It was a great time. Late nights. Regulation was certainly a theme throughout after someone was served a legal document at the Messari conference just before allegedly they were to appear before a panel, but nobody knows and no one has been confirmed as to who this person was. And there are some who say that there were multiple people, as many as 3, so regulation was on people's minds. Also heard a lot about NFTs. You mentioned, institutionals looking at other markets besides Bitcoin, looking into the NFT market, a lot of interest in play-to-earn gaming and how that incorporates NFTs. And interoperability was also another theme, how to align all these blockchains and create a more uniform, decentralized Web3. So that's what I got out of the conferences. But also a huge announcement with Twitter. This is a big deal. Christie, tell me about Bitcoin tipping on Twitter with this latest announcement just on Thursday.
Yeah, well, we all know that Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, is a big fan of Bitcoin. He's tweeted about it himself many times. He's been to lots of Bitcoin conferences. I think he's got Bitcoin in his handle. So if you're an Apple iOS user, you can actually use a new tip feature on the app. And if you're a content provider, or if you just follow someone whose content you really like, you can receive and send Bitcoin directly. So this is a neat way to monetize your Twitter content. The payments use third-party apps to process the payments. And for Bitcoin, they're using Strike, which, as we know by Jack Mallers, takes advantage of the Lightning Network to send Bitcoin transactions practically instantaneously and without any fees, which is important if you're just sending a small amount of Bitcoin. You don't want to be doing that on chain. The fees will be more than the tip, probably way more than the tip. So this is a really neat innovation, and it's a great way to show the use case for Bitcoin and Lightning payments, Lightning transactions in a real world setting. Another neat thing to note is that the funds will not flow through Twitter directly. So they're not going to be taking any of the tip proceeds for themselves. Everything that you send goes to the person you're sending it to. All the tips go to the creators. And that is a pretty big deal too, because there's a lot of complaints in the publishing, whether it be music publishing or written content or video publishing, that there's always some being skimmed out off the top, either by YouTube or Spotify or whatever, that the proceeds don't go to the content creators. And in this case, it does. If you're an Android user like me, Twitter promises that the feature will be coming to those devices soon, and that'll be really cool to try out when that hits.
Yeah, it was a really cool video that Jack Mallers put on his Twitter showing him tipping via Twitter from Chicago to a friend of his in El Salvador, and his friend being able to buy a cup of coffee at Starbucks there through this new Bitcoin tipping on Twitter feature. So super interesting. Also, we got to move on. Taking a look at the week ahead. In terms of the markets, Brad, the Fed is signaling tapering could happen at their next meeting in November. How does that bode for the crypto markets?
Well, it's kind of, the fix is in. The cake is baked. He basically came out and confirmed, this Fed chair, Jerome Powell, came out and confirmed this week a plan that probably most people were expecting him to, which is, they likely will announce at their next meeting in November, that they would start to taper this year. So, December. The only thing that could change that he said, was a weak September jobs report, which we'll get in a couple weeks. And so,
So you don't think it'll really impact things too much? It's already baked in there.
I mean, he could move off that plan. They could delay the taper, and that would be good for Bitcoin. So, I mean, in some ways, it's like the bad news for Bitcoin is baked in there. The Fed can only get easier at this point in terms of kind of its plan. They're either they will maintain their $120 billion a month purchases for longer, or who knows if the economy gets worse, or if there's something related to the debt ceiling. They have to raise the debt ceiling if there's a U.S. debt default in the next couple weeks, and that were to spook markets. Maybe the Fed has to go in. I don't know, but it's safe to say that the worst is in.
A lot of competing factors out there. Christie, last word. Speaking of things that could happen, China, U.S. regulation, those are certainly headwinds.
Yeah. And I think that, so with China, the good thing is we know what China is planning at the moment for crypto in general, not just Bitcoin. All crypto it's cracking down, and they're very, very, very clear on what they plan to do in the near term, at least with crypto. What's next? What is there left for them to attack in crypto world, in Bitcoin? Individuals, that's, I think, the next thing. We'll see where that goes. I'm curious to see if there are other oppressive regimes who take a look at what China's doing and go, that's a playbook for us. Let's see if we can also jump in and regulate what many say, what Bitcoin as a financial tool for freedom. How can we disrupt that? How can we keep that from progressing here in our country? As far as U.S. regulation, it's not as clear. U.S. regulators, and of course the rest of the world, often follows suit, follows what the U.S. does. They're still trying to figure it out. The U.S. regulators are still looking for clarity. They're still trying to wrap their heads around what exactly it is. They're not as antagonistic, but as China, clearly. But at the same time, with uncertainty, that is also reflected in the markets, and it's reflected in how businesses are going to approach innovation within the country. Is it worth it for them to invest in American companies, or are we going to be looking elsewhere for Bitcoin innovation?
Right. Well, Bitcoin certainly has its allies in Congress. I'll just read out a tweet just out 5 hours ago from Senator Pat Toomey saying China's authoritarian crackdown on crypto, including Bitcoin, is a big opportunity for the U.S. It's also a reminder of our huge structural advantage over China. So certainly there are those in Congress who want to promote and encourage adoption and use of Bitcoin. All right. Thank you so much, Christie. Great to have you on. Brad, have a fabulous weekend. You too.
You too, Christine.
Hey.
All right, that's it for All About Bitcoin. I'm your host, Christine Lee, and we'll do it all over again on Monday at 3 p.m. Also join me Monday morning at 9 a.m. in New York for First Mover, your first look at the day's global crypto news headlines. You're watching Coindesk TV.